Jake Morrison stood in his small office aboard the Earth Defense Station and looked at the formal message that had just arrived from the Galactic Council. The holographic seal glowed with the authority of 1,000 worlds, but Jake felt nothing except a cold satisfaction. After 3 long years of playing the role of the humble human ambassador, the moment he had been waiting for had finally come. The message was exactly what they had predicted it would be. The Council was summoning Earth's representative to answer. Charges of unauthorized military expansion, territorial violations, and failure to comply with integration protocols. Jake read each accusation with growing amusement. If only they knew what humanity had really been doing for the past 3 years. He walked through the corridors of the station toward the Central Command Center, passing dozens of technicians and officers who nodded respectfully as he went by. To anyone watching, Jake Morrison appeared to be just another worried diplomat heading to face the music. The truth was far different. Every person on this station knew exactly what was about to happen, and they had been preparing for this day since the moment humanity first made contact with the Xanthari delegation. The command center doors slid open silently, revealing a room that hummed with quiet efficiency. Admiral Connor Blake stood at the central display, his weathered face showing no emotion as he reviewed the tactical readouts that filled the screens around him. Captain Lisa Hayes stood at attention nearby, her uniform crisp and her expression focused. Dr. Alex Turner sat at his workstation, fingers dancing across holographic controls as he made final adjustments to communication protocols. The message came through exactly on schedule, Jake said as he entered the room. They want me to appear before the full council in 48 hours to answer the charges. Connor turned from the display and smiled, but there was no warmth in the expression. Perfect timing. Our intelligence networks confirm that all council species have representatives present on the station. They want to make this a public spectacle. Lisa stepped forward and handed Jake a datapad. Final confirmation from all our assets. Every piece is in place. The Liberation Fleet is holding position in the outer systems, cloaked and ready. Our allies have their delegations prepared to move on your signal. Jake took the pad and scrolled through the reports. 3 years of careful planning and patient work had led to this moment. While the Council had believed they were dealing with primitive humans who barely understood faster-than-light travel, humanity had been conducting the most sophisticated intelligence operation in galactic history. Dr. Turner looked up from his station. The xenobiological profiles are complete. We have detailed psychological assessments of every council member, including their individual fears, motivations, and breaking points. The translation matrices are calibrated to deliver maximum emotional impact. The plan had begun the day humans first encountered the Xanthari scout ship in the outer solar system. Instead of responding with the military might that Earth actually possessed, they had chosen to appear weak and eager to please. The first human delegation had bowed and scraped before the alien representatives, playing the role of backward natives desperate for acceptance into galactic civilization. But while the diplomats smiled and nodded, human intelligence services had gone to work. Every piece of alien technology that was shared as aid was immediately taken apart and analyzed. Every cultural exchange was an opportunity to plant listening devices and infiltrate alien computer networks. Every friendly gesture was cover for the most comprehensive spying operation ever undertaken. Connor activated a wall display that showed a 3-dimensional map of the local galactic region. Red dots marked council holdings, while blue indicators showed human assets. The aliens would be shocked to learn just how many blue dots there were, hidden in asteroid fields, disguised as mining operations, and tucked away in systems the council considered too unimportant to monitor. The beautiful thing, Connor said as he pointed to the display, is that they never bothered to verify our claims about our capabilities. When we told them we had a few dozen ships, they believed us. When we said our population was smaller than it really was, they accepted that too. When we claimed our technology was primitive, they never questioned it. Jake nodded. The deception had been surprisingly easy to maintain. The council species were so convinced of their own superiority that, They never imagined a newcomer might be lying to them. They had looked at humanity's carefully crafted facade of technological backwardness and seen exactly what they expected to see. Lisa pulled up another display showing communication intercepts from council vessels. They're planning to make an example of us. The Xanthari want to show the other species what happens when someone challenges council authority. They think a public humiliation will keep everyone else in line. What the council didn't understand was that humanity had been studying them just as carefully as they thought they were studying Earth. Human analysts had identified every weakness in council society, every crack in their alliance, every species that chafed under their control. The intelligence reports painted a picture of an organization that maintained power through fear and stagnation rather than strength. Dr. Turner brought up his final analysis of alien psychology. The key insight is that none of them have ever faced a real challenge to their authority. Their entire system depends on new species being overwhelmed by the scale of galactic civilization and accepting a subordinate role. They literally don't know how to respond to someone who refuses to be intimidated. Jake walked over to the viewport and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, hidden in the darkness, the Liberation fleet waited for his signal. Ships crewed by humans and their new allies, armed with weapons the Council couldn't imagine, and unified by a shared desire to break the chains that had held the galaxy in stagnation for centuries. The truth was that humanity had never intended to become just another member species of the Galactic Council. From the moment they learned that intelligent life existed beyond Earth, human leaders had begun planning for this day. They would not accept a secondary role in galactic affairs, and they would not allow their development to be controlled by others. Connor joined him at the viewport. Are you ready for this, Jake? Once we drop the mask, there's no going back. The galaxy will never see us the same way again. Jake turned back to face the room full of officers and scientists who had spent 3 years preparing for this moment. Each of them had played their part perfectly, maintaining the illusion that humanity was weak while secretly building the foundation for what would come next. I've been ready since the day the Xanthari told us we needed their permission to explore our own galaxy, Jake replied. It's time to show them what humans are really capable of when we stop pretending to be something we're not. The council chamber was a massive sphere that could hold representatives from 1,000 worlds. But today only the most important species were present. Jake Morrison walked through the entrance with slow, measured steps, and for the first time in 3 years he was not alone. Colonel Ryan Parker marched beside him in full military dress uniform, his medals catching the light from the chamber's artificial stars. Commander Maria Santos walked on Jake's other side, her hand resting casually on the ceremonial weapon at her hip. The aliens in the chamber noticed the change immediately. For 3 years, human delegations had always consisted of nervous diplomats who bowed deeply and spoke in quiet, respectful voices. Today was different. Today, the humans walked like they owned the place. High Counselor Zektar of the Xanthari sat on his elevated platform at the center of the chamber, his forearms gesturing dramatically as he began the proceedings. His voice carried the same arrogant tone that had characterized every interaction with humanity since first contact. The other council members arranged themselves in a circle around the speaking floor, their various forms creating a display of galactic diversity that was meant to intimidate newcomer species. Jake listened as Zektar read the formal charges against humanity, unauthorized military expansion beyond approved limits, territorial violations in 17 different star systems, failure to comply with Council Directive 847B regarding primitive species integration protocols. Each charge was delivered with the expectation that the human representative would hang his head in shame and beg for mercy. Instead, Jake Morrison smiled when the Xanthari finished his lengthy recitation of human crimes against galactic order. Jake rose slowly from his seat. Every eye in the chamber focused on him, expecting the usual display of human submission. What they got instead was something none of them had ever seen before. Jake did not bow. He did not lower his eyes. He did not speak in the apologetic tone. that had marked every previous human appearance before the council. Instead, he stood straight and tall, meeting the gaze of each council member in turn. "Honored councilors," Jake began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's advanced acoustics. "For 3 years we have played your game. We have pretended to be awed by your technology, intimidated by your fleets, and desperate for your approval. We have smiled while you insulted us, nodded while you dismissed us, and thanked you while you restricted us." A confused murmur began to spread through the chamber. The Aquilian representative, Valthara, pulsed angry orange colors, while demanding to know what the human thought he was doing. The insectoid Kralix delegate clicked its mandibles in what might have been amusement or threat. Jake gestured to Colonel Parker, who stepped forward and activated a device that had been built into his uniform. A holographic display materialized. In the center of the chamber, replacing the Council's own projection system with human technology. That was obviously far more advanced than anything the aliens possessed. "Today," Jake continued, "that performance ends." The hologram showed what appeared to be a tactical overview of the local galactic region, but as the display expanded and gained detail, gasps and electronic protests erupted from the assembled aliens. What they were seeing was not the backward human military presence they had been told about. Instead, the display showed a comprehensive breakdown of every weakness in Council defenses, every strategic vulnerability in their territories, and detailed analysis of how humanity could systematically dismantle their civilization. Dr. Rachel, Kim's voice echoed through the chamber as her image appeared in the holographic display. Her calm professional tone contrasted sharply with the growing panic among the council members as she began her presentation. "The Xanthari home fleet," Rachel explained, highlighting sections of the display with laser pointers, "maintains a defensive posture around their primary world that leaves their industrial stations completely exposed to attack from the galactic south. Their shield generators operate on a rotating frequency that can be predicted and countered with properly timed electromagnetic pulses." The Xanthari delegation erupted in angry chittering, but Rachel continued without pause. "The Aquilian trade routes depend on 3 critical junction stations that have no backup systems. Disruption of these stations would collapse their economy within 6 standard months." Valthara's color patterns shifted to deep red, the Aquilian equivalent of rage, but the human presentation continued. Each major council species saw their most closely guarded military secrets displayed for everyone to see. Fleet positions they thought were hidden, weapon capabilities they believed were unknown, strategic plans they had never shared with their allies. The Kralix representative finally found its voice and demanded to know how humans had obtained such classified information. The answer came from Commander Santos, who stepped forward with the same confidence that had marked every human action since they entered the chamber. "We obtained it the same way we obtained everything else over the past 3 years, Maria said. "We listened, we watched, we learned. While you were congratulating yourselves on keeping the primitive humans in line, we were studying every aspect of your civilization." Jake activated another section of the holographic display, showing communication intercepts that dated back to humanity's first contact with the Xanthari. Every classified message, every secret military briefing, every private conversation between council members had been monitored and recorded. "You see," Jake explained as the evidence mounted before them, "you made a critical error in judgment. You assumed that because we were new to the galactic stage we were also incompetent. You believe that because we appeared primitive, we actually were primitive. You thought that because we acted grateful for your guidance, we actually needed it." The display shifted to show technical specifications for human technology that far exceeded anything the Council possessed. Quantum communication systems that operated on principles the aliens had never discovered. Weapons based on physics they didn't understand. Ships built with materials they couldn't synthesize. "Every piece of technology you gave us as aid," Maria continued, "was immediately reverse-engineered and improved. Every cultural exchange was an opportunity to plant monitoring devices in your facilities. Every diplomatic meeting was a chance. to gather intelligence on your capabilities and intentions. High Counselor Zektar finally managed to speak through his shock and outrage. "This is impossible," he declared. "No species achieves such technological advancement without Council guidance. No civilization develops such capabilities independently." Jake's smile grew wider. "That's the problem with your thinking, Counselor. You've become so accustomed to controlling galactic development that you forgot what an uncontrolled species looks like. Humanity didn't crawl to the stars under your supervision. We fought our way here through 10,000 years of war, innovation, and survival." The implications of what they were seeing began to sink in throughout the chamber. The species that had dismissed humanity as primitive newcomers were looking at evidence that they had been completely outmaneuvered by those same primitives. The civilization they thought they understood had been playing a game several levels above their comprehension. The holographic display in the center of the council chamber flickered and changed, showing a new image that made several alien representatives gasp in recognition. General Tony Martinez appeared in full military dress, his scarred face baring witness to decades of combat experience. Behind him, banks of tactical displays showed star charts, fleet positions, and weapon specifications that painted a picture the Council had never imagined possible. "Greetings, honored counselors," Tony said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had never lost a battle. "I am General Martinez, commanding officer of the Human Defense Forces. I believe it's time you learned what we've really been doing while you thought you were managing our development." The display behind Tony expanded to show the true scope of human military deployment throughout the galaxy. Red markers indicated positions that the Council believed were empty space or unimportant mining operations. Blue markers showed the reality: a network of military bases, hidden fleet anchorages, and weapon platforms that spanned dozens of star systems. Colonel Parker stepped forward and activated additional displays around the chamber's perimeter. Each screen showed a different aspect of human military capability that had been carefully hidden from Council observation. Shipyards disguised as asteroid mining facilities. Weapons testing ranges hidden in the radiation shadows of dying stars. Training facilities built inside hollow moons that appeared lifeless from the outside. 3 years ago, Tony continued, when your scouts first made contact with our outer system patrols, you assumed you were dealing with a species that had barely mastered interstellar travel. You saw our ships and concluded we were primitive. You observed our technology and decided we needed your guidance. You were wrong on every count. Commander Steve Johnson appeared on one of the secondary displays, broadcasting from what looked like a military command center built into an asteroid. His calm professionalism contrasted sharply with the growing panic visible among the Council members as they realized the implications of what they were seeing. "The truth is," Steve explained, "humanity has been spacefaring for longer than you. Realize, we didn't announce our presence in the galaxy until we were ready to deal with whatever we might find out here. What we found was a collection of species that had grown complacent and assumed their superiority was natural law. The Kralix delegate, known throughout the galaxy for its strategic brilliance, demanded to know how humans had achieved such rapid technological advancement." The question was answered by Dr. Helen Carter, whose image replaced Tony's in the main display. Behind her, a laboratory facility showed teams of human scientists working with equipment that clearly surpassed anything the Council possessed. "The answer is simple," Helen said. "We didn't achieve rapid advancement. We achieved targeted advancement. Every piece of Council technology you shared with us was immediately analyzed, understood, and improved. But we didn't stop there. We took your scientific principles and pushed them in directions you never considered." The display showed side-by-side comparisons of Council technology and human improvements. Quantum communication arrays that operated 3 times faster than the Council standard. Weapons that used energy principles the aliens had never discovered. Shield generators that could absorb and redirect incoming attacks rather than simply blocking them. "You gave us your communication protocols," Helen continued, "and we used them to build better systems. You shared your propulsion technology and we developed engines that could outrun anything in your fleets. You provided us with defensive specifications, and we created weapons specifically designed to overcome them. Jake Morrison gestured toward the displays that now surrounded the council members on all sides. Do you understand what you're looking at? This is the result of humanity applying our natural talents to the foundation you unknowingly provided. We took your technology and made it better because that's what humans do. We improve everything we touch. The Vorthan delegate, whose species controlled most of the galaxy's primary trade routes, finally found its voice and asked how long humans had been infiltrating council space. The answer came from Admiral Sophie Barnes, whose image appeared, broadcasting from the bridge of what was obviously a warship of incredible sophistication. "We've been here the entire time," Sophie said matter-of-factly. "Those merchant vessels you've been tracking through your territory for the past 2 years? Military reconnaissance ships? The mining operations you approved in supposedly worthless systems? Forward operating bases? The cultural exchange students we sent to your worlds? Intelligence operatives?" Behind Sophie, her bridge crew worked with the smooth efficiency that only came from extensive combat experience. The ship's true capabilities became visible as stealth systems deactivated, revealing weapon arrays and defensive systems that dwarfed anything in the Council's arsenal. The panic in the Council chamber was now open and undisguised. Representatives from dozens of species realized that their most secure military positions had been observed and cataloged by human forces they never knew existed. Trade routes they considered impregnable had been mapped by ships they thought were civilian. Strategic positions they believed were secret had been under surveillance for years. Lieutenant Commander Dan Foster appeared on another display, showing detailed analyses of every major Council military installation. Fleet compositions, weapon specifications, defensive capabilities, and strategic doctrines were laid out with a precision that spoke of years of careful observation and study. "The beautiful thing about your military structure," Don explained, "is how predictable it's become. You've been the dominant force in this region for so long that you've stopped innovating. Your tactics haven't changed in decades. Your technology has stagnated. Your strategic thinking has become rigid and formulaic." High Counselor Zektar rose from his platform, his forearms trembling with rage and fear. "What do you want?" He demanded. "Why reveal this now? What are your intentions toward the Council?" The answer came not from any of the military officers, but from President Claire Rodriguez, whose image now filled the main display. Behind her, the unmistakable blue and green of Earth was visible through the windows of what was clearly the human seat of government. "We want what we've always wanted," Claire said simply. "Freedom to develop our civilization without interference. Freedom to explore the galaxy without asking permission. Freedom to make our own choices about our own future." She paused and looked directly at each council member in turn. "For 3 years, you've tried to manage humanity's development according to your rules and your timeline. You've restricted our expansion, limited our technology, and attempted to control our growth. You assumed we would accept this because every other species you've encountered has accepted it." The displays around the chamber now showed something that made the council members' worst fears concrete: evidence of human alliances with species throughout the galaxy. Civilizations that the Council had dismissed as unimportant or primitive were now revealed as partners in humanity's grand strategy. "But we're not every other species," Claire continued. "We're humans, and humans don't ask permission to be free." The silence that followed President Rodriguez's words was broken by the sound of emergency alerts echoing through the Council chamber. Velthara's tentacles writhed in patterns that indicated extreme distress as she received updates from her home fleet. The Kralix delegates' mandibles clicked rapidly while processing data feeds from military installations across Kralix space. One by one, every major council species began receiving reports that would shatter their understanding of galactic power forever. Admiral Sophie Barnes smiled as she watched the alien representatives realize what was happening. "You're probably wondering why your monitoring stations are going offline," she said from her position on the bridge of the UES Retribution. Allow me to explain what you're seeing. The holographic displays throughout the chamber updated to show real-time footage from across the galaxy. In system after system, what had appeared to be empty space or civilian installations suddenly revealed their true nature. Stealth fields deactivated around massive human warships. Mining platforms unfolded to reveal weapon arrays. Asteroid bases opened to release fighter squadrons that had been hidden for years. Captain Eric Thompson appeared on one of the displays, broadcasting from the command deck of a ship that dwarfed even the largest council vessels. Behind him, officers worked at stations that used technology the aliens couldn't identify. The ship's hull bore markings that indicated it was part of something called the Liberation Fleet. For 3 years, Eric explained, you've been tracking what you thought was the human space navy. A few dozen ships, primitive weapons, basic defensive capabilities. What you were actually tracking was our diplomatic escort service. Our real fleet has been building in the shadows while you congratulated yourselves on keeping us contained. Lieutenant Commander Dan Foster's tactical analysis now showed the true scope of human naval power. Hidden shipyards had been producing vessels of war while the Council believed they were monitoring all human industrial capacity. Fleet anchorages disguised as research stations held battle groups that could challenge any Council force. Weapons platforms built into seemingly dead moons controlled strategic choke points throughout known space. The Vorthan delegate finally understood why his species' trade monitoring systems had been detecting unusual patterns for the past year. Those cargo ships that had seemed to be carrying routine supplies were actually moving military equipment between human bases. The merchant vessels that had requested passage through Vorthan space were reconnaissance craft mapping defensive positions. The beauty of your system, Don continued, is that it assumes cooperation. You never imagined that a species might agree to your restrictions while secretly building beyond them. You thought monitoring our shipyards meant you knew our capabilities. You believed controlling our resource allocation meant you controlled our growth. Commander Maria Santos activated another set of displays that showed something even more shocking than hidden fleets. Intelligence networks that span the galaxy, with human operatives embedded in every major Council institution. The beings the Council had accepted as students, researchers, and cultural ambassadors had been conducting the most comprehensive espionage operation in galactic history. Every classified briefing, Maria explained. Every secret military planning session, every private conversation between Council leaders has been monitored and recorded. We know your defensive capabilities better than you do. We understand your strategic doctrines because we helped write the analyses that shaped them. The displays showed intercepted communications between Council species that revealed information they had never shared with each other. Secret military buildups that violated their own treaties. Hidden alliances designed to maintain power balances. Private agreements that contradicted their public positions on galactic law. Hi. Councillor Zektar S4 Arms gestured frantically as he demanded to know how such extensive infiltration was possible. The answer came from Dr. Rachel Kim, whose psychological profiles of Council species had made the entire operation possible. The key insight, Rachel explained, was understanding that your species have grown complacent. You've been the dominant powers for so long that you stopped questioning whether your security measures were adequate. You assumed that because you were advanced, you were also careful. You believed that because you were experienced, you were also wise. The evidence mounted as display after display showed the depth of human intelligence penetration. Council military codes had been broken years ago. Communication protocols had been compromised from the beginning. Strategic databases had been accessed and copied in their entirety. General Tony Martinez reappeared to provide the final piece of the intelligence puzzle. Every weakness we've identified, every vulnerability we've discovered, every strategic flaw we've cataloged has been shared with species throughout the galaxy who have grown tired of Council control. The revelation hit the assembled aliens like a physical blow. The humans hadn't just been preparing to challenge the Council themselves. They had been building a coalition of species that spanned half the known galaxy. Civilizations that the Council had dismissed as irrelevant or primitive were now revealed as allies in humanity's grand strategy. Captain Lisa Hayes appeared broadcasting from a facility that was clearly not human in design. Around her, beings from dozens of different species worked alongside human officers in what appeared to be a joint command center. The technology visible in the background combined the best innovations from multiple civilizations into systems that surpassed anything the Council possessed. The Council's greatest mistake, Lisa explained, was assuming that suppressed species would remain suppressed forever. You treated technological development as a privilege to be granted rather than a right to be respected. You controlled resource allocation to maintain your advantages rather than encouraging innovation. The displays now showed the true scope of the alliance humanity had built. Species that had been forced to accept secondary roles in galactic affairs had been sharing their unique technologies and capabilities with human researchers. The combined knowledge of dozens of civilizations had been focused on a single goal: ending Council dominance. Commander Steve Johnson provided the tactical assessment that made the Council's situation clear. Right now, in systems across the galaxy, our combined fleets are taking positions around every major Council installation. We're not invading or attacking. We're simply making our presence known. The reports flooding into the Council chamber confirmed what Steve was telling them. Human ships and their allies had emerged from hiding throughout Council space. They weren't firing weapons or making demands. They were just there, demonstrating a level of coordination and capability that the Council had never imagined possible. Jake Morrison stepped forward as the displays around the chamber showed the new reality of galactic power. The question before this Council is not whether humanity belongs among you. The question is whether you belong in a galaxy that now contains U.S. The choice presented to the Council was elegantly simple, but the implications were staggering. Captain Eric Thompson's image filled the main display as he outlined humanity's terms for the new galactic order. Behind him, representatives from dozens of species that had been suppressed under Council rule stood ready to support the changes that would reshape civilization across the stars. The age of controlled development is over, Eric announced with calm authority. Species will be free to advance their technology without Council oversight. Trade routes will be open to all civilizations, not just those who pay tribute to maintain access. Scientific research will be shared freely rather than hoarded by the privileged few. Dr. Patricia Wells appeared on a secondary display, her research files containing evidence that would destroy the Council's moral authority forever. 3 years of careful investigation had uncovered a pattern of corruption that reached into every aspect of galactic governance. Resource allocation based on bribes rather than need. Military interventions designed to protect Council economic interests rather than innocent populations. The systematic suppression of technological advancement to maintain the status quo. The Council has presented itself as the guardian of galactic peace and prosperity, Patricia explained as documents filled the displays around the chamber. The reality is that you have been the primary obstacle to both. Your policies have kept entire civilizations in poverty while your member species grew wealthy from their labor. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Trade agreements that forced developing species to sell their resources at below-market prices. Technology transfer restrictions that prevented innovation in favor of maintaining existing power structures. Military deployments that had nothing to do with peacekeeping and everything to do with protecting Council financial interests. High Councilor Zektar rose from his platform, his voice shaking with rage and desperation. You cannot simply overturn the established order of the galaxy, he declared. Chaos will follow. Wars will break out. Civilization itself will collapse without proper guidance. Jake Morrison smiled at the familiar argument. It was the same justification every oppressive system used to maintain power. Counselor, you're confusing order with control. True order comes from cooperation between equals, not submission to superiors. What you call civilization is actually stagnation wrapped in the language of stability. Commander Roy Adams appeared on the displays to show the final piece of humanity's strategy. The Liberation Fleet was not just human ships with alien allies. It was a completely integrated force that combined the best technologies and tactics from dozens of different species. Ships designed by human engineers but powered by Zellner energy cores. Weapons based on Thrakari physics but controlled by human targeting systems. Defensive systems that merged Council shield technology with innovations the Council had never imagined. While you were focused on maintaining your advantages, Roy explained, we were building something better. Every species in our alliance contributed their unique strengths to create capabilities that none of us could have achieved alone. This is what cooperation looks like when it's not controlled by fear. The vote that followed was not the one the Council had planned when they called this session. Species after species that had been suppressed under Council rule declared their support for the new order. The hegemony of Vel, whose artistic achievements had been dismissed as unimportant, revealed that their aesthetic sense had led to breakthrough discoveries in quantum mechanics. The Drift Runners, considered too primitive for full membership, had developed navigation technology that surpassed anything the Council possessed. Admiral Sophie Barnes provided the military assessment that made the Council's position clear. You have a choice to make, and you need to make it now. You can accept the new order and work with us to build a better galaxy, or you can resist and discover just how thoroughly you've been outmatched. The displays around the chamber showed the scope of the forces arrayed against the old system. Not just human ships, but vessels from every corner of the galaxy crewed by beings who had grown tired of Council control. Entire civilizations that had been forced to accept secondary status were now revealing capabilities they had hidden for centuries. The Zentari delegation huddled together in urgent consultation while the Akalian representative pulsed colors that indicated complete confusion. The Kralix delegate had stopped clicking its mandibles and sat motionless as it processed the magnitude of the strategic shift taking place around it. Lieutenant Commander Dan Foster appeared to provide the technical details that sealed the Council's fate. Your combined fleets are outnumbered 3-1 by vessels that use technology you don't understand. Your defensive installations are surrounded by forces that know every weakness in your systems. Your communication networks are compromised. At every level, Dr. Helen Carter added the scientific perspective that explained how such a reversal was possible. The Council's greatest error was assuming that technological advancement required centralized control. In reality, innovation thrives when information flows freely and when diverse perspectives can contribute to problem solving. By suppressing development, you guaranteed that someone would eventually surpass you. President Claire Rodriguez appeared, for the final time, to offer the Council a path forward. We're not here to destroy what you've built or to punish you for past mistakes. We're here to offer you a chance to be part of something better. A galaxy where advancement is encouraged, rather than controlled. Where cooperation is based on mutual benefit rather than fear. The terms were reasonable but non-negotiable. The Council could maintain their homeworlds and their internal affairs, but their authority over galactic development would end. Species would be free to pursue their own technological advancement without interference. Trade would be conducted on fair terms between equals rather than through systems designed to maintain inequality. The vote was unanimous, though not in the way the Council had intended. Every species that had been waiting for this moment declared their independence from Council control. The beings who had hidden their true capabilities for decades revealed technologies that transformed the balance of power. Forever. Jake Morrison's final words echoed through the chamber and across the galaxy as communication networks carried the message to every world. The galaxy belongs to all of us, not just to those who happen to reach the stars first. Today marks the end of an age of control and the beginning of an age of true cooperation. As the session concluded, ships emerged from hiding in every system where Council forces had maintained control. The crews broadcast a simple message that would be remembered for generations. The galaxy was free. The polite mask humanity had worn for 3 years lay discarded in the Council chamber, revealing the face of a species that had never learned to accept defeat and would never allow others to accept it either.